Welcome back to History of Simple Things. Today's topic comes from one of our viewers, Wayne Scarpacci. Thanks for the awesome suggestion. You asked, the history of hair dye. If you've ever stepped into a salon, scrolled through hair color trends online, or experimented with a bold new shade at home, you're part of a tradition that goes back thousands of years. From ancient plant-based pigments to modern rainbow hues, the history of hair dye is as rich and colorful as the dyes themselves. So how did it all begin, and what twists and turns brought us here? Stick around as we comb through the fascinating history of hair dye, right here on History of Simple Things. The earliest evidence of hair dyeing dates back over 4,000 years to ancient civilizations like Egypt and Mesopotamia. The ancient Egyptians were among the first to use natural pigments to color their hair. They typically used henna, a plant-based dye that tinted hair a reddish-brown color. For Egyptians, hair color was not just aesthetic, it had religious and social significance. Even wigs were dyed to signify status or roles in rituals. Meanwhile, in Mesopotamia, the practice of coloring hair was also linked to status, although less is documented. Over in ancient Greece and Rome, hair dyeing became more experimental. Greek women used a concoction made of leeches fermented in wine to achieve a dark black hue. The Romans had their own recipes, using everything from walnuts to ashes and even gold dust. Blonde hair became especially desirable among Roman women, as it was associated with the exoticism and beauty of Northern European slaves, which unfortunately highlights the intersection of beauty standards and social hierarchies. Moving into the medieval period, the practice of hair dyeing continued, but it was often viewed with suspicion by the Church, which associated artificial beauty with vanity and sin. Still, natural substances like saffron, alum, and indigo were used to tint hair. Interestingly, many of the dyes used during this time were quite dangerous. Some formulas contained quicklime or lye, which could severely damage both hair and skin. Yet the desire to alter one's appearance persisted, showing just how deep-rooted the appeal of hair color was, even when beauty came at a cost. The Renaissance period saw a bit of a revival in the use of hair dye, especially among the aristocracy. Red and blonde hair became fashionable in parts of Europe, particularly in Italy, where Venetian women would sit for hours under the sun wearing wide-brimmed hats with holes in the top to allow their hair to bleach naturally. They enhanced the process with a solution called aqua bionda, a mixture of lye and sulfur, which was both stinky and corrosive. But the resulting golden tones were considered the epitome of beauty. During the Elizabethan era, Queen Elizabeth I herself helped popularize reddish hair, inspiring many women to use similar dyes to emulate her look. By the 18th and 19th centuries, advancements in chemistry began to influence the world of cosmetics, including hair dye. The Victorian era was particularly fascinated with personal grooming and presentation. Women used silver nitrate and other chemicals to darken their hair, often applying these substances in secret due to the stigma associated with cosmetic enhancement. The concept of natural beauty was paradoxically maintained through artificial means. Hair dye at this point still relied heavily on vegetable dyes and metallic compounds, which were inconsistent in results and often unpredictable. The real revolution in hair dye came in the 20th century with the development of synthetic dyes. In 1907, French chemist Eugene Schueller, who would go on to found L'Oréal, created the first commercial synthetic hair dye called Aureole. This innovation marked a turning point. Suddenly, hair dye became more accessible, reliable, and safer than ever before. The market began to grow rapidly, with major brands emerging and developing formulas that could deliver a range of shades. By the 1940s and 50s, hair dye was a regular feature in women's beauty arsenals. Ads promoted the idea that changing your hair color could change your life. Clairol's 1956 campaign, "Does she or doesn't she?" subtly suggested that dyed hair could look so natural, no one would ever know. This helped break the stigma around coloring hair and open the floodgates for mainstream acceptance. In the decades that followed, hair dye became not only a beauty product, but a cultural symbol. In the 1960s and 70s, counterculture movements embraced wild, unconventional hair colors as a form of rebellion and identity. Punks, goths, and later grunge kids used hair dye to stand out and signal their ideologies. The late 20th century saw further advancements in hair dye technology, allowing for semi-permanent colors, highlights, and gentler formulas. Celebrities began playing a massive role in hair dye trends. Think Madonna's platinum blonde, Gwen Stefani's pink phase, or even David Bowie's ever-changing hues. By the time we hit the 2000s, hair dye was no longer just a tool for covering grays. It had fully transformed into a mode of self-expression for all genders, ages, and walks of life. Today, the hair dye industry is worth billions and shows no signs of slowing down. Temporary colors, at-home kits, organic formulas, and even color-depositing shampoos have flooded the market. Social media has amplified trends faster than ever. One viral TikTok can launch a global hair color craze overnight. Even attitudes toward gray hair have evolved. Want something to hide? Natural gray is now embraced by influencers and fashionistas, sometimes even replicated with silver dyes. What's fascinating is that hair dye has come full circle. Where it once was used to conform to societal standards, it's now often used to break free of them. Color has become about identity, creativity, and personal empowerment. So next time you think about dyeing your hair, or see someone with a brilliant turquoise mane, remember that you're not just indulging in a beauty trend. You're participating in a centuries-old tradition that spans cultures, continents, and classes. The history of hair dye is more than skin or scalp deep. It's a vivid timeline of human expression, chemistry, and the ever-evolving definition of beauty. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.